According to Johnny Eberhart, this is the reason why most people don't fill their tag during season. Listen and make sure it's not you. Here we go. Where do you think most people fall short when hunting pressured whitetails? If there was a common theme that you've seen, or this is just what your gut feeling is?
Can I be honest?
You can be honest.
I think the majority of hunters are just lazy. I really do. I've hunted with a lot of hunters and a lot of what were supposed to be really hardcore hunters, and I've never been impressed with their work ethic. You know, I've never been impressed with their entry routes and their exit routes and how early they got in their trees on morning and how frequently they hunted their locations. They overhunted their locations. To me, most hunters tend to overhunt their locations. The biggest advantage you can have in deer hunting, period, is scent control. I don't pay attention to wind, and it blows my mind that most hunters don't take advantage of activated carbon technology, so they don't have to pay attention to wind. Whether that's because they're too lazy, I have no clue. Or maybe they're on somebody's pro staff, so they can't. But to not take advantage of that type of technology, which is that's a whitetail's biggest defense, is their nose. And to be able to not even pay attention to their nose and just hunt wherever you want, whenever you want, is a huge, huge advantage. So overhunting locations, not taking advantage of the current technology that's out there, not getting in their trees early enough on morning hunts.
How early? I mean, I'm sure it depends on the setup, but how early is a rule of thumb that you need to be there before shooting light? Because I know you get in. I mean, and most people, it's an early, very, very early.
I'm in my tree. Not when I go out of state. When I go out of state, I drop my standards big time on how I hunt. But when I'm in Michigan, I'm in my tree, set up, quiet, an hour and a half before daylight, especially during pre-rut. Because a lot of times, once it gets into the rut phases and the crops are picked, I'm hunting a lot of bedding areas. So when you're hunting in bedding areas, you have to get in there and be set up way before any mature bucks are going to be coming in. And usually mature bucks in heavily pressured areas, they're transitioning into the bedding areas, at least a half an hour before daybreak. And once they get into the bedding areas, then they feel secure because they can hear anything else coming into the bedding areas, because no hunters go in bedding areas that early in the morning. So they feel kind of comfortable. So they'll continue moving around, and they may not bed down until, let's say, half an hour after daybreak. And they're very vulnerable to rattle sequences once they're in there too. So being in there and set up an hour and a half before daylight during pre-rut, especially in bedding areas, is a big deal.
Yeah, quite literally. I think people use the phrase "beat them back to bed," but
yes,
I think if you're getting there at the, where a lot of, I've been guilty of this, of just not being there early enough, which is that a cardinal sin in your book of by not being there that early in some of those?
If you're hunting in a bedding area in a pressured state during the pre-rut, yeah, that's a cardinal sin. Absolutely. Totally. You put all this work into scouting, prepping this location. You probably prepped it during postseason if it's in a bedding area. Getting up in the morning, putting on your clothes, practicing with your bow, and to sleep in an extra half hour or an hour instead of being in that tree when you're supposed to be in there to beat the deer into the bedding area. Yeah, I consider that. It's not a sin. It's just being lazy.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. There's no other way of putting it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no way around it. And I think sometimes that's, that's just part of getting better, of identifying some areas that you can improve on. And if that's something you aren't currently doing and you can improve on it, then hopefully your success will increase, which is obviously what's always been your goal of helping people. I think no one would do all the things that you've done over the course of your career if you didn't have a passion for actually helping people, in my opinion. From the books you wrote, the time you take to write articles for magazines, that's time out of your schedule to do that, and you're doing it to help other people.
Do you realize how much I love getting emails from guys that send me pictures of nice bucks that they've shot because they're paying no attention to the wind? They got in their tree early enough. I got an email from a guy I don't remember, from Michigan. He shot a 150 some inch buck down in Kalamazoo County because I posted a rattle deal on my YouTube channel in late September. And he tried it, a long-standing cornfield, and he rattled in for Michigan, 150, I think it was 152 incher. He rattled that in and came right out of the cornfield. He said it got right to the base of his tree and it was looking around for the action. And he greened it. And that to me is just very gratifying. Mm-hmm. And I will say this about that. early arrivals. Hunting early in the morning and getting up that early every day is a pain in the ass. There is no question. It's difficult. And you have to do it 50 times for the one time it helps. You know what I mean? It's like all day sits. You sit all day, a half a dozen times during the course of the season, and there's some season it doesn't work out. So you think, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. Yet you'll hunt evenings for the rest of your life, and maybe one out of every 40 evening hunts is successful, but you've abandoned midday hunting because it wasn't successful 4 times in a row. You just can't let numbers throw you off on what you should be doing, because stats wise, like midday hunting during the rut phases, statistically, I have taken 21 bucks from November 1 in Michigan through November 14th. So that's a 15-day period, I guess. So 21 bucks, and 7 of those bucks were shot between 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So midday. I consider 11 to 3 midday. That's 33%. Okay. 33% of my bucks were taken during midday, while less than 8% of my time spent on stand during all that period was during midday. Usually I'm hunting mornings and evenings. So in an 8% of my time on stand, I've killed over 30% of the bucks during that time frame.
When you frame it that way, it's hard to argue. Hard to argue that.
You can't argue.
Yeah, that's just the facts of it. So, but yeah, I think people fall into people. We talk about bucks being habitual. People are habitual. Even just talking about how you go to Kansas, like the 16th is when we head out there because of Michigan gun season, everything else. Like we as humans are just as habitual, whether that's a good habit or a bad habit. We're all victims to it.